never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan, Neff. Today, I've got Eva Rodriguez with me. And I'm really looking forward to this interview because when I read her story, there were so many parallels to my own story. A story of unexpected trauma, a story of multiple little things not going so well, and then a descent into being an escape artist, escaping with food, with alcohol, with spending, with you name it, workaholic. She is my twin. So I can't wait to talk and tease out her transformation from the darkness to the light. So welcome to my show, Eva.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you.
Oh, wonderful. Eva, it is weird. It is our story. I mean, how do you start an interview? Yeah, tell me about your trauma. It's so bizarre. I mean, nowadays we are in the we are able to share the darkness. Are you happy to share a little bit about your transformation?
Absolutely. I am a completely open book. You can ask me anything throughout this interview. But to get started, my trauma story, unfortunately, starts very, very early. When I was 4 years old, my very first memories of life is of my sister dying of cancer. So she was just 1 year older than me, and she'd had cancer. So all I remember from being a very little girl was being in the hospital and being very confused, not understanding what's going on. At one point, I had to put it all together after as an adult, but at one point she was sent home basically because the doctors couldn't do anything else. So I remember like it's yesterday. I still remember sitting on a couch and her laying on the couch and she took her last breath. I was 4 years old. I had no idea what any of this meant. And my parents were obviously devastated. So they didn't know how to deal with this, how to grieve. They were in their own grief bubbles. And I don't like to say it this way, but this is really how it felt. I was left behind. I was emotionally left behind, neglected, abandoned. I had all of the things in life that I needed. I had food, shelter, I had all of that. But what I didn't get from my parents, because they were so caught in their grief, was a moment for me to have time to process and understand as a child what happened, that I would no longer ever see my sister again. So that began the very first beginnings of like my remembrance and my memories. All of that is from death. So we fast forward to, I'm now an adult. I have graduated from college. I moved to LA. I had these big dreams of being a singer, and I danced my whole life. I sang my whole life. I was acting. So I moved to LA to do the thing, to just like do the auditions and do that, just that whole lifestyle. And I was so in that lifestyle. I was bartending at night and, doing auditions during the day and doing all of that. I always said I wanted to be the next J-Lo back then. And so I'm in LA, I'm doing all of these things. I meet a guy, how that story usually goes. I ended up getting pregnant by him. And at that point, I decided, I said, obviously being a singer and dancer and actress, back burner now. It's all about being a mother. I don't even know what this means, but I told myself I'm gonna best mother that I can be to my child. I'm gonna give him everything I didn't have, emotionally, love, and all of that.
Hmm.
So fast forward a little bit more, 2015, um, my fiance and I, we were looking at houses. We were, thinking about starting a life like forever. And I'll never forget that day in January, when he didn't come home and no one could get a hold of him. And I'm calling all his friends, I'm calling his job. No one knows where he is. And about 15 hours later, I find out that he had died overnight in a car accident. And if you're familiar with Los Angeles, lots of cliffs, lots of mountainous areas, lots of all of that. So his car somehow drove off a cliff, and he died on the spot instantly. And at that point, I'm devastated. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. But what I do remember in that moment was I remembered little Eva, like the little version of me at 4 years old, losing my sister. And I looked at my son who was 3. And there was so much parallel there. And I just remember thinking, I have got to explain this to my 3-year-old child. I have to explain daddy's never coming home again. And it was the most difficult conversation I've ever had in my life. It was the most heartbreaking thing because as a 3-year-old, you don't really understand, but you understand enough. You understand enough that like something very bad and permanent happened. And so that was a whole thing for me to just really wrap my brain around. And my brain went to, you cannot do what your parents did to you. You cannot detach. You cannot get so overwhelmed by the grief and so engulfed in your grief that you forget that there's this little person who doesn't understand any of this. So I made it my mission. I made it my point. I even promised his father, at his gravesite, I said, I will take care of him. You don't have to worry. I will do whatever it takes. And so I brought my son. We moved away from LA, came back home to our hometown of Maryland with my parents. And 2 months after I get here, so now we're at May 2015, my mother gets diagnosed with cancer. And at that point, I'm thinking, this cannot be. Like how much grief, like how much pain, like can one person take? But the thing about cancer, I think we all know someone who's been affected by it. It comes, it goes. You think you've kind of, gotten around it, and it just comes back like gangbusters. And we had that moment where we thought she was going to be okay, and we thought she was going to recover. And then almost overnight, it just turned around, and it just declined so fast. And so she died shortly thereafter. She died after about a 9-month battle with cancer. So now here I am. I've lost the father of my child, who I thought was my soulmate. I've lost my mother, but also my son has lost his father and his grandmother. And again, I find myself having to keep it together. I have to keep it together for my son because I cannot let him see his mother unraveling, because then he's going to be worried. And then like there's my dad, who he was married to my mother for 45 years. He's devastated. So I have to be the strong one. I have to be the one that's like, okay, I'm handling everything, taking care of everything. And what I ended up doing without realizing was I bypassed grieving completely. I bypassed the whole feeling of like processing it, dealing with it. And I just went straight into do things. I got to do things. I have to stay busy. So I went back to work after my mom passed, like 3 days later. I was like, I have to work. I can't be home with my thoughts. So that's how my brain went to this like survival mode of just like creating things to keep me busy, because anything was better than feeling the pain. Because I had this fear that if I allowed myself to cry, I would never stop. And that was really the beginning of where I was like, is this life? Like, is this really what my life is going to be? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I feel for you, Eva.
Yeah.
It is a such a torrent of trauma, such a torrent of negative emotions.
Yes.
And you have never really learned to live with your emotion, to be
Mhm.
present and to be there and to be accepting for
Yeah.
a negative emotion. Uh, Sometimes even the positive emotions, we are so fleeting and we always strive towards the next thing, the next thing.
Yep.
We don't
Yes.
celebrate our wins, and we
Yeah.
certainly don't celebrate any negative emotions. So we run
Mhm.
away, the escape
Mhm.
artists. Okay.
Yes.
So what was
Yes.
your first escape? The
So
work.
my first escape was work. Absolutely. Work was a big one. And then it very quickly turned to alcohol.
Hmm.
Very quickly turned to I'm on edge all day. I'm working and working, a bottle of wine. It went from 2 glasses of wine every night to 3 glasses of wine every night to 4 glasses of wine, which is the whole bottle.
Exactly.
Right.
Uh,
And I just kept increasing and increasing, and it became so normal because all day I'm functioning. It's not like I'm like, I didn't think there was a problem. I'm like, I'm not drinking in the mornings. I'm not drinking on my lunch break. Like I am functional. I get it all done. I come home, I unwind with wine. Like that was just my thing. I never thought that it just never computed in my mind that A, it was an issue, B, that I was escaping, none of this. I was just like, what else am I going to do? What else is there to do but to just completely detach as much as I can from all of the thoughts, from all of the, because even though, as you know, when we have emotions, they don't go anywhere. Like it just sits there until you find a way to process it one way or the other. So in this like I call it like a cloud that I was in, this like very foggy cloud. I was just like, I don't know. I'm just day to day, day to day. I didn't have I don't want to say I didn't have a purpose. I just didn't have like a way out. It just everything just seemed bleak in that moment. And I think that's what I was escaping, the bleakness
mm,
of everything, just the intensity, just the set, all of that was just like, oh, too much to deal with. Let me just distract myself. So there was alcohol, then there was also eating. There was also the emotional eating, right? Because one thing I've learned as I got all these certifications, right, soon after that, but one thing I learned when I became a health coach was oftentimes our emotional eating and our cravings for certain foods are directly tied to something that our body or our brain needs. For me, I was so addicted to sugar and sweets because it gave me the dopamine that my brain was not getting from anything else. And so it's like a logical person's like, I know this chocolate is not making me feel better, but realistically and chemically, for a moment it does.
mm,
So if you're going the entire day of just stress, 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 trauma, drama, drama, all of these things, a piece of chocolate suddenly becomes your best friend because I know when I eat it, I will feel, even if it's 1 minute of like oof from that dopamine, from that sugar rush, that and I know that's what, like, when we're addicted to something, that's what we seek. We just keep seeking that moment, and we know it's a really small one, but it just in our minds, in that place when we're stuck there, it just feels like I just need a little bit. I just need a little bit of relief, no matter what it looks like. And we're not even thinking about the damage it's causing. We're not thinking about how it all accumulates on the inside. We're just thinking, I can't deal. I just want a little bit, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And a little bit turns into more and more and more. And next thing I know, I'm 30 pounds overweight.
no one ever has one piece of chocolate. Let's be
No,
come on. We
no.
both know that.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and please, guys, sugar is as addictive, or not as, it's actually far more addictive than, let's say, cocaine.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
with cocaine, at least you've got those little voices say, you really shouldn't do that. With
Yeah.
sugar, it's there everywhere.
It's
And
yes.
unfortunately, the standard American diet is designed to get you hooked. They are
Yeah.
designed, these so-called food items are designed to actually make you eat more. So
Yes.
80% of the food in the supermarket is actually directly contributing to diseases
Yes.
nowadays. And
Yes,
both
it is.
Eva and I are strong proponents of taking a long, hard look at what you buy, what you put in your mouth. But
Yes.
even more so, we both understand that it is so important to look at the reasons why we eat. And I think
Absolutely.
that is we both have been victims to this escape mechanism of overeating.
Mhm.
And it feels good. It feels good
Yeah.
to finally, oh yeah, it's like a hug from the
Mhm.
inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Yes, but then
problem.
what happens? Then what
Yeah.
happens, right, on the upper side, the opposite of it is you get this little hug from the inside, and you're like, "Ooh," and then once that fades away, however long it takes, and it's usually minutes, it's not even that long, it's usually just minutes, then I know, at least for me and for so many of my clients who have been emotional eaters, then the shame comes in. Then the judgment, it's like it's like this wave of like, gotcha. I'm taking all that joy away that you had 2 seconds ago, and now I'm gonna make you feel awful. And then that cycle starts a whole other cycle of like, I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel bad. Right. And so what makes you feel good? More of this, maybe not this, maybe the wine will do it. If not food or wine, oh, there's another one. There's online shopping. That was the
Excellent.
other escape. Overspending, buying shoes that I was never gonna wear because where am I gonna go? Like buying all of this stuff because my brain just wanted just that dopamine. I just needed some joy. I needed some peace. I needed love. And that's really what my heart was broken from, not only losing the love of my life, but losing my mother. And my heart's broken and I need love. And again, dopamine, oxytocin, all of that. I'm missing all of that, but I'm getting it from all of these external things. Problem is, there's a net negative result to all of the overeating, overdrinking, overspending, overworking, all of it. The net negative is it's going to affect your health, it's going to affect your lifestyle, and it's going to catch up with you eventually, one way or another. For me, it caught up with me about 2 years after 2015. So it was 2017 when I was in my office working and I completely passed out. Just passed out. I was dehydrated. I hadn't drank water. I was surviving on literally coffee and Ambien and Zoloft. Like I was just all of this. That's all. It was just chemicals. I was like going my fumes, just chemicals. Because I was just like, go, 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 go. I passed out in my office. That is when I always say, when I hit rock bottom, I literally hit the bottom because I'm stubborn. Because stubborn people like me don't get the whisper. We get the like, okay, you don't want to listen. I'm going to make you hit your head on the floor. So that is essentially what happened. Pass out in the office. That is when I realize and wake up and I see paramedics and people. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And I'm like, oh, wait. And that was my moment of just like, if you don't change, if you don't stop and really take stock of what's really happening with you and your health, you're next. And then what? And then what will your son do when I'm all he has? And that is what needed to happen. That was like such, when you talk about a light bulb moment, when you talk about like, that's when I was like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And I was determined. And once I like set my mind to something, I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I was determined to get healthy. And I didn't know what it meant yet. I was like, I don't know what healthy means. I just know I'm not, because clearly my body's giving up on me. I am not. I'm going to figure out what it is and I'm going to get healthy because my son deserves me to live as long as he needs me in his life. And at this rate, on the pills and the wine every night and the coffee all day and eating, McDonald's on my way home, my 2 hour commute, because what else am I going to do in this 2 hour commute? Right. All of that was silently killing me on the inside. And I said, enough is enough. And that was my turning point.
May I ask, how long was that period of darkness?
That period of darkness probably lasted 3, maybe 4 years.
Hmm.
Um, because I remember very vividly the pandemic, only because how can we ever forget it? But 2020 being that moment for me where I was like, even when that happened and we're all confused, we didn't know what was going on. And I there was something that happened inside of my brain that was like, this could be really good or really bad for you.
Hmm.
Because as someone who has anxiety and depression and my brain goes to like worst case, like we're all thinking the world's going to end, like what's about to happen, it would have been very easy for me to be like, nah, and go very easily back into those habits of, oh, well, there's nothing else to do, let me go get some wine, there's nothing else to do, let me bake some cookies, which so many people ended up doing. And I said, in that moment, I said, I can't let myself go back there
Hmm.
to that dark place that I was in a couple of years ago. That is a place I never want to go back to. And knowing myself, which I think is the thread of all of this, is just really paying attention to
Mm.
what your body, your brain, your intuition is all telling you. Knowing myself, I knew that I could very easily fall into a hole. And I didn't want to risk that anymore. So
Mm.
I was determined. I was like, nope, no matter how long this lockdown or whatever shenanigans happening right now, no matter how long this lasts, I'm going to I'm going to take this time for me.
Yes.
I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to do work on myself. I'm going to work out with myself. I'm going to figure all this stuff out. And that was really the biggest point where my life really turned into this whole other trajectory where becoming a coach then became very much because I didn't go into my certifications to be like coaching other people. I just wanted to be healthy. That was really it. My first certification was my health coaching certification. And it was really because I was like, I just want to know everything about health. And I don't want to become a doctor because who has time for that at this age? But I'm like, what can I just want to be healthy. But when I kept learning, the more I learned about how our body, how beautiful our bodies are, and how they really just want what's best for us. And we treat it so poorly. When I learned that, when I learned this mind, body, spirit connection, when I learned all of these new things about how everything works, I was like, this is fascinating. Why don't they teach us this in school? Because if they did, maybe so many of us wouldn't be overeating, overdrinking, overspending, doing all of these harmful things because we don't know how to deal with emotions. Because at the end of the day, that's all it comes down to is emotional management. And if you can't manage your emotions, you can't manage your nervous system
So true.
and all the things that happen when you can't do those things. Right?
Oh, beautiful. I
Yeah.
100% agree. The
Yeah.
problem is, yes, I guess, I think we need also to take extreme ownership ourselves here, because here in
Mhm.
your story, you as the 4-year-old felt abandoned, felt left alone due to
Mhm.
circumstances. Without blaming your parents, they
Yeah.
did the best
Yeah.
they could to
They
keep it
did.
together. And
Yeah.
for all intents and purpose, um, shelter, food, a degree of
Yeah.
love
Yes.
was there, but certainly not to rising up to your needs.
Yes.
And
Yes.
fast forward now to your own son. You
Mhm.
were losing yourself there. You were trying to escape. You were trying
Mhm.
to deal with the enormity of the circumstances, and you
Yes.
lost yourself. So I I dare to say that you probably were not the greatest mum to be
Mhm.
around.
Yes.
So it comes in big cycles, isn't it?
Mhm.
Our life experiences, and
Yes.
I commend you, because at least it was only 3-4 years for you.
Mhm.
For me, it was a much longer time
Mm.
that I tried to escape. Maybe I
Yeah.
was too good in hiding it. Um,
Mm.
I regret that nowadays, but then
Yeah.
again, if I would have not gone through all those horrible experiences, then I wouldn't be the man that I am today, warts and all.
Yes. Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is an
I totally
opportunity.
agree.
This
I
is an
agree.
opp-
No, absolutely. It's like our traumas and our pains and all of this, they could either go to vain, which a lot of people do. They're like, oh, I just, escape from world and never check back in. But then there's people like us who's like, okay, I went through this and it was awful and it was painful and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But it turned me into who I am today.
Mhm,
And now I can relate to so many people.
mhm.
Just like you can relate to so many people from completely across the world. Like you're in New Zealand, I'm over here. And like we have so much in common. We were talking in the beginning of the show. It's like all of these things, who would have ever known? Right. But if we're not sharing our stories, then there's that
Exactly.
one person who's thinking, I'm alone. Because in my darkest moment, I did not think anyone could help me. I did not see the light. I was like, I am alone and I'm always going to have to do this alone. And that is such a hopeless feeling
Mm.
when you just think that the world is on your shoulders, you can't turn to anyone, and you just have to go into this robot mode. And you're missing out on life. You're missing out on all of these things. And that's what just inspired me to become a coach, because I said, I know there's so many other women like me who maybe not so much trauma, maybe some worse trauma, but they've lost themselves
Mm.
either at work because their profession has taken over, either at home because being a mother has taken over, whether it's anything that it may be. So many of us lose ourselves. And then by losing ourselves, we're putting ourselves, our health on the back burner. And what I say all the time is without our health, we have nothing.
Mm.
Nothing at all. So it's so important for, the listeners and the watchers to just know that you're never alone, even when you feel like you are.
Mm.
But it's so important to not think of asking for help, to not consider like maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but let me see, let me Google, let me whatever, because I can promise you, anyone that's listening that says no one can understand or no one's been through, someone has, and someone can help you. And you are not crazy. I wish someone would have just been like, "You're not crazy." Yeah, like, this is not, you didn't do anything, but we think it's us, and then we're stuck in our head, and that's what causes so much unnecessary suffering for
Mm.
so many of us. At least for me, it certainly did. Yes.
Beautifully said.
Thank
How was your relationship with your body in the past as a younger girl and then as a teenager?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I didn't know then what I know now. What I know now is that I have body dysmorphia.
Oh.
And if if anyone's not familiar with it, it's basically just there's this disconnect between how you really look and how you think you look, essentially. And this like almost like nitpickiness where you'll find something and you'll like zero in on one thing and then just like, oh, this, I need to fix it, I need to hide it, I need to do something with it. So I didn't know that I had that up until maybe like 3 years ago when I got diagnosed with it. And I was like, oh, everything makes so much sense. But as I was growing up, I just remember seeing my mom, who again, remember, she lost a child, never grieved it, never really dealt with it,
Mm.
never processed it, right? They literally, the way that this was their way of coping, took down all her pictures, never spoke of her again.
Ugh.
That's all they knew how to do.
Mm.
Obviously, for me, again, I'm confused. I'm like, why? Like, I remember her. It's like, why is this happening? But what I saw being modeled as how to handle your emotions from my mother was to eat. So I would see her eating. I would see her eating cookies. I would see her crying and eating. And I thought that was normal. I'm like, oh, when you're sad, you eat. Okay. I'm sad, I'm gonna eat. I had a bad day, I'm gonna eat. So that started very, very early by me watching her. And I look a lot like her, and I remember her being really hard on herself and her body, very
Mm.
judgmental, very, self-deprecating. And again, didn't know any better. But when I look back and I look at how I am with my son now, I'm always just giving him life. I'm just like, it's beautiful. You're perfect. It's gorgeous. You're just, like I just do, I shower him with so much just like love and compliments and affection and all that,
Mm.
because I know when you're so impressionable between the ages of what, 0 and 7, you're the most impressionable, and then teenage again, it happens again. The last thing that a child needs to hear is that they're not good enough or
Mm.
something's wrong with them, or they're looking at the person they look up to who's saying, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me. So obviously it's like, well, then I must not be either because I'm of you. I come from you. So that followed me my entire life, which is a big part of like the emotional eating, the yo-yo
Mm.
dieting and all of that. I would gain 20 pounds, lose 20 pounds, gain 20 pounds. That was my entire life. And again, it goes back to my relationship with food was disordered. My
Mm.
relationship with my body was disordered. And I didn't have the tools. I didn't even have the vocabulary to explain what that even meant up until about 4 years ago.
Mm.
And that frustrates me so much about just like everything, society, the world, because it's like so many times we don't even know what it's called. We just think it's something wrong, and it's like, no, it's nothing, it's not wrong with you. It's just something's going on with the way you're processing it that's distorting it. Let's fix that. Let's
Mm.
get to the core of that because you are not broken. I just wish someone would have said that to me. You are not broken, because this entire time I thought I was. Yeah.
And it's only getting worse at the moment with social media, with you being able
Mm,
to put filters on
yeah.
your social media, on everything. I mean, with the advance of AI, we are able to modify us to the very best possible thing. You
Yeah.
nowadays have got AI functions where you can create your own avatar that
Mhm.
is a deep fake of yourself. And you
Yeah.
can modify that and can say, okay, I want to be a bit slimmer. I want to be a
Mhm.
bit, you know, and it
Yes.
is scary
It
because
is.
is that you? No, that is the way
It's
you maybe
not.
want to look. But
Yeah.
what a way of conforming, what a way of
Yeah.
losing our own identity.
Yes.
But who is able to truly look in a mirror and be content and be
Mhm.
happy when we are flooded the whole day with images of, in my case, I'm 57, you see 57-year-old bodybuilders who have got washboards as their abdomen, and they
Mhm.
look absolutely sexy, you have to say. And then, yes, you see these granddads
Yeah.
in peak shape. What I've actually done is I've actually checked their stories out. Turns out when they were 17, they were in the gym. They were professional bodybuilders their whole life. So this
Right.
is not a granddad that has woken up yesterday and thought, you know
Right.
what? I actually want to get fit again. It's like,
Yes,
so
yes.
what are we comparing us with? My
Yes. Yeah.
goodness. But
Yes.
these are the reality checks that you
Mhm.
don't do because you don't know what you don't know. So therefore, it's so
Right.
refreshing for you to actually be here on my show and
Yes.
just spell it out.
Yes. Yes, it's everywhere. It's so many, it's everywhere. I feel for the young people. Truly, I feel for them because we didn't have social media or the internet, when I was a teenager and all of that. But I feel for them. But what really gets me sometimes, like I get emotional when I think about this when I work with my clients and they can remember things. And these women are in their 30s, 40s. I work with surgeons, attorneys, like these are accomplished women and they can still remember comparing themselves to someone, to this, like still comparing themselves to people, nitpicking themselves. I sometimes have my clients do a exercise in the mirror where it's like, I want you to say 10 things out loud that you
Mm,
love about your body. And they find that so difficult. So difficult. It brings them the tears because they're so used to comparing themselves to the next person or to who they see or to who they thought they were supposed to look like 20 years ago. And that still follows them around.
mm,
And again, these are women who are so accomplished and successful and beautiful in their own rights, and they still don't feel adequate. And that is heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking. But that is how the media, the advertisers, that's how they make their
mm,
money. It's like, oh no,
mm.
you're not thin enough, you're not tall enough, you're not this enough, your wrinkles are showing. Let's do something about that. They're always pointing something out. And then we see social media, as you said, with all of these doctored things. Then you see someone in person and you're like, who's this person? Because my thing is, what happens when they see you in person, like, and you're not filtered? Because the filter does not come with you. Maybe that'll be the next, like, I don't know, invention. It's like,
Oh, yeah, glasses with AI functions. No,
yes.
that's not how I want to look.
Right. It's like, no, it's like, don't look at me that way. Look at me from this angle. Like, it is the most bizarre thing in the whole world. But if you think about it from just the most primitive place in our brain, we all want to be accepted and we all want to be a part of a group.
Mm,
And so, what so much marketing does is it nitpicks at your pain points to make you feel so insecure and like you are at risk of being banished from the tribe that does that does not exist anymore. But our primitive brains will truly believe that it does. And it's
yeah.
what has so many people doing so many harmful things
Mm,
to achieve something that's not real.
wow.
Yeah.
we are falling into this trap more and
Mm.
more. And it takes guts to actually step outside of that stream of the torrent of manipulation that
Yes.
we are exposed to.
Mhm.
It is a choice that we have at any one moment in time. We can keep
Yeah.
scrolling our social media feeds. We can watch the news. We can think about all those things that we do not have control
Mhm.
over, that is worrying us. We can relive the past constantly or constantly live in the future, but there's nothing that we can actually control there.
Yeah.
Here we are, however, right now, both of us are living with intention. We are
Mhm.
sitting here completely in the moment and are connecting. We are communicating. We are
Yeah.
exchanging truth. We are authentic. We are
Mhm.
actually humble because we both admit to things that maybe we are not so proud of.
Yeah.
But that is such a power that we have chosen to feel. It is
Mhm.
wonderful because it's all about choices.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I was just thinking when you were talking about your clients, that they are very accomplished women, that they are very women with a lot of alphabet soup behind their name.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I dare to say that many of them have become these versions of themselves because there was no internal validation. So they were
Mm.
looking on the outside. Okay, I
Mhm.
need to do the next thing and the next thing and the next
Yeah.
thing. I bet you they were never used to celebrating their gains, their wins. I bet
Mhm.
you that there was always they were driven to go further, 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 because
Yeah,
that's another beautiful escape mechanism. And that's
it is.
somehow that we try to feel love, however fleeting. And when I look back at my accomplishments, they were about as fleeting as far as joy is concerned as a cookie. A few
Mhm.
minutes, and then
Mhm.
okay, next.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yes.
oh God, how do you celebrate your wins nowadays?
Oh, I love this question because I have struggled. I have struggled so much with that. And something you mentioned a minute ago that I think is so interesting. I say this often. I work with high achieving women. I am a high achieving woman, but being a high achiever is actually a trauma response, as you said, because we're always just searching for some just either validation or that dopamine hit or that like oh my gosh you're so great, and it's still very fleeting, as you said. It will still last about 90 seconds, like it will still last 90 seconds. It really does. But we're seeking this thing. It's the same with me. I have I'm a certified health coach, life coach, weight loss coach, NLP practitioner. I always have every single certification that you could possibly need to have like the best life ever. Right. But I did this because I'm like, no, but I need more. No, but I'm missing something. No, but if I had one more thing. Right. And not to say I don't regret any of my many certifications, but I do wish that I would have taken a moment to pause and celebrate and be grateful and relish for a little bit of extra time of just like, oh, I just did that. I just studied my butt off and I just finished this exam and like, look, this is amazing. Instead, what I would do is, okay, I just got this certification. On to the next one. What's next? What else do I have to learn? Right. It's just another way of escaping,
Hmm.
right? Of escaping. Because the other thing I've noticed with working with so many women, with these kinds of thoughts and thought patterns and all of these like trauma responses is that we are not taught to celebrate ourselves.
Mhm.
We are not taught to take a moment. It's if you slow down, you're missing something. We think we're missing out on something. Like the train's gonna leave the station or something. And it's like, no, it's not. You can drive. Like, like there's other options. You can choose a different thought. We can choose something different. But
Mhm.
oftentimes we're so conditioned to just like put your head down and do and create some more. And if we don't do that, there's judgment. Sometimes we judge ourselves. I do that sometimes. Am I being lazy? Should I be doing something right now? Like sometimes when we're so used to just being on, it's harder to take that moment. But what I have learned in forcing myself to just be in the moment and be
Mm.
grateful and celebrate is that when I do those things, I do get more good things. There was a moment earlier this year where I was kind of finding myself back into that nervous response of like, do. Like, I have to do all these things. And what's so interesting is my business felt it. And that was my business got affected by it because I wasn't being centered. I wasn't being intentional. I wasn't celebrating the things. I was just like, no, the next thing, the next thing. And it literally forced me to like, because your business, running a business will bring you to your knees. It literally forced me to be like, what is happening here? What am I doing wrong? And the more I sat with that, the more I realized you're not being grateful and you're not being kind to yourself. And that is so important in general in life. But if you're not doing those two things, so if you're not taking care of you, you can't take care of anything else around you, including your business, including your household, because everything else, everything is chaotic then if you're not centered. And I had to really slow down and take a big step back. It's a part of like why I rebranded and changed my podcast name and all these things. But I really had to step back and be like, I'm not aligned right now
Mm.
with who I want to be. I'm losing myself again. It's easy to lose yourself because life happens so fast. That's why it's easy for us to be like, oh, just take a moment and just calm. But you say that to a person who's going 100 miles an hour, they think you're crazy. They're like, I don't have time to calm down. But no, it's kind of the thing that we say about meditation. If you say you don't have time, then that's when you really need to make time for it. Same thing with slowing down, right? If you say you can't slow down, you must, because you are going to hit a wall. And that is what happened to me. And now what I have forced myself to do is anytime, I mean, literally, if I see that I got a new subscriber on YouTube, I take a moment. I'm like, thank you and welcome. I don't know who these people are. They don't show us who they are, but I just take that moment to just thank whoever this person is. And that is grounding. Like sometimes we think to ground yourself, you have to like go in a corner and get in a lotus position, light some candles, do all this. Sometimes it's just as simple as just taking a deep breath. And that brings you into the moment.
Mm.
And then you're able to see clearly because your brain gets oxygen. And then you're able to be like, oh, I just did that thing. I just finished that project sooner than I thought. Great. Yay, me. We don't have to, it's not like we're having a party every time we have a win, but bypassing the small wins
Mm.
is so, it's common, but it is what leads to self-sabotage every single time because you'll never feel like anything's good enough.
Mm.
And that's why it's so important to really and I say this to my clients, the little wins on the scale, the little wins
Mm.
when you eat, the little wins in the gym, all of that will add up to big stuff. When we're high achievers, right? We just want the big stuff, right? We just want the grandiose, like, oh, I have arrived. We want to arrive.
Yeah.
But before you arrive, you have to take those moments of like, okay, I'm one step further. I'm one day closer. And that's what your nervous system needs to calm down when you're always in fight or flight mode, which high achieving people generally are because we're always doing stuff. Your nervous system needs to know we're okay, we're safe. And what better way than to just celebrate yourself, just little bits. If not for you, I always tell my clients, if not for you, do it for your nervous system. Do it for your nervous system because it needs to be brought back down to a lower baseline than here, which is where a lot of our nervous system stays.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in the past forever writing to-do lists, and I still do every day. These are just things, but I have now reframed them. So I don't write to do, I write to celebrate list. And
I
these are
love it.
exactly, and that's it. Actually, I was trying to write to do, and then suddenly my hand wrote celebrate. That was my subconscious
Your
talking and actually say,
subconscious.
come on, time to change something here.
Yes,
And
yes,
that was a beautiful breakthrough where
yeah.
my conscious was just watching, and my ego was just watching and say, "What
Uh-huh.
is going on here?" But then every time I write it, it makes me smile, and it
Good.
focuses me on the fact, on the privilege of choice that we
Yes.
have, and that we should, not should is a shit word, that we have got the privilege to celebrate, that we have got the choice of how we
Mhm.
respond to something on the outside. We probably
Yes.
cannot alter many things that affect us in our lives. And if you can, good on you. But
Mhm.
many of them we can't do anything about. Let that be the
Yeah.
weather, let that be the climate,
Mhm.
let that be
Yeah.
a political situation, a
Mhm.
war in your country.
Yeah.
There not there's not much you can do about that, but there
Mhm.
is very much a way of life that is probably more likely to get you more or less sane through those
Mhm.
challenges,
Yes.
compared with another way of life that gives you immediate satisfaction, but at
Mhm.
what price? There's only
Yes.
so much alcohol you can take before your liver
Mhm.
and your
Mhm.
various cancers and your heart and
Yes.
your brain are just all saying, come on.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is beautiful. We have got opportunities and you have modeled them. Eva, you're there, you're going out there and you're showing it. But having said that, we are both very good about the gratitude and about the wins and celebrate the wins. Yeah, okay, now the next trauma comes. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you do when there's a huge wave of anxiety washing over
Mm.
you? How do you
Yeah.
respond to that nowadays?
Nowadays what I do is, for me, a big part of my healing journey has been, it's interesting you mentioned the subconscious, has been working with my subconscious. One of my latest certifications was hypnotherapy, and I fell in love with it because, specifically, because I've been doing mindset coaching and all of that, and I believe so much in mindset, choosing thoughts, choosing intentional thoughts. As you said, the weather, you could either say, "Oh man, it's raining," blah, 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 or you can be like, "Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I love the rain. I love to sleep in the rain. The trees are going to be beautiful. The flowers." We can choose to think one or the other or anything in between that. So I'm huge on mindset tools, mindset shifts. When I learned about the subconscious, when I learned about how hypnotherapy can help you with, just, now you're choosing those intentional thoughts, put them into your subconscious through those suggestions. I was like, oh my gosh. So as I started learning it, and then I started getting it done on myself, and now I do them for my clients, that's been a really big one. So when I have anything that comes up, because anxiety is never going to go anywhere. I think sometimes we think, because I used to think this way, one day I will be healed. I will be healed. And I will be like, yes, I'm healed. I am evolved. No, no, no. It is a constant. It is a journey that never ends. You are constantly, you're going to heal more. You're going to heal more. And then something will happen. And then you'll be like, whoops, this still needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Or something new will happen and you'll get triggered. Or you'll get tested, right? You'll get tested. Be like, what are you going to do? Right? Universe, God, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this situation? But for me, what I've now focused on doing is, and I've also recently learned that I have ADHD. So now a lot of things are making more sense to, like, why I think the way I do and why I do the things
Mm,
that I do and why certain things don't work for me, like batch working, like, doing certain things like that. It's like, I'm very much like, I'll wake up one morning and be like, I'm going to do this. Right. And that sounds crazy to like a very organized person. They're like, oh my gosh, you don't have a plan for the week. And I'm like, for the week? What? That is crazy for
mm,
me. I don't know what I'm going to do in 3 days. I don't know what I'm going to do in 5 minutes. So for me, I have learned to, the more, and this is something I say to everyone, the more you know yourself, the more you know yourself without judgment, because I've used to be so judgmental, but the more you look at yourself and think about yourself and observe yourself from a place of curiosity, the more you can understand what you really need. And so when things happen, when you now know so much about yourself that you know how to regulate your emotions, not that you're not going to feel them, but that you're not going to let them take you over,
mm,
right? That you're not going to be impulsive, that you're going to instead sit down, whether it's write out all my thoughts. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just write down my thoughts that are driving me nuts. Sometimes I'll put them on a Post-it note and I'll just be like, thought after thought, just all the thoughts, just to get them out of my head, just to
Nice.
get them out of here so that they're not circling and ruminating and doing all of that. That gives me clarity.
Nice.
That allows me to have some time to think and be like, what do I want to do with this circumstance that I'm dealing with right now? What can I do? Because as you mentioned a few minutes ago, there's so many things in the world that we cannot control.
Mhm.
The only thing, honestly, only thing we can control is our thoughts and our behaviors. That is the only thing. We can try to inspire, we can try to, convince, but at the end of the day, it's really just you. You can't even control your children, even though they come from you. Like, they still have their own minds of their own, right? All you can control is your thoughts. So if I can control my thoughts and my behaviors, then I can take a moment to decide instead of be impulsive and instead of letting this thing become this whole gloom and doom thing. I think my perspective has also shifted because life is short and I've seen how short it is since day one of my memory.
Mhm.
And so now knowing what I know, I look at anything that comes up to me, anything that comes my way. And this is something a friend of mine said. She said, Eva, you've been through hell. At this point, there's nothing that you cannot handle. And as sad as it sounds, it's true.
Mhm.
There is nothing that I can't handle. And I know that if as long as I stay true to me,
Mhm.
true to myself, true to my goals, my values, all of that, then I know that no matter what comes my way, I will do the best that I can with what I have. But managing my emotions has probably been the most important thing. And you manage your emotions by learning that thoughts are not facts. We think that they are oftentimes, but thoughts are not facts. So if that's the case, even if I can think a little bit better, slightly better than what the original thought was, a little bit closer to neutral
Mhm.
versus anxiety, because my go-to is always anxiety. Like, anxiety lives like on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, she gets in my purse when we go out the door. She wants to drive the car. I don't let her. I tell her to go back. But it's one of those things where it's like, instead of fighting the anxiety and like, no, go away, I don't want to think about this right now, I'm just like, come on, anxiety, let's have a chat. What do you need me to know? And sometimes that's all you have to do. And
Mhm.
it might sound bizarre to some people. An exercise that I have my clients do is, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, name every single emotion that you're feeling and give them a voice. What is anxiety telling you? What
Yeah.
is overwhelm telling you?
Yeah.
What is fear telling you? Because if you ask in that way, you're curious and you're not judging yourself or here you go again, making this whole thing, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. Those emotions are trying to tell you something. When we're escaping the emotions is when we're doing the overs and when we're overeating, overdrinking, overspending, doing all of that, which has a negative effect. There is no net negative to asking yourself, what is anxiety telling me?
Mhm.
All it gives you is clarity. Now, what you do with it, up to you. No one's business but yours. But that's something. If I could leave like the listeners and the watchers any exercise, it would be that. It's fun to do. I say that, like, I put them like at a a boardroom, and it's just like everyone, all the emotions, like the movie Inside Out, kind of, but like all of the emotions, you'll have your time to speak, and let's have a little powwow, and then you get to choose, because you're the adult with the executive function.
Mhm.
You get to choose, what are we going to think? How are we going to feel? What are we going
Mhm.
to do from here? And it feels a lot less heavy when you kind of break it down like
Mhm.
that, when you separate everything that's going on. That's probably the most important lesson that I've learned through all of my trauma drama, that I call it,
Mhm.
um, through my dark night of the soul, through all of that. It was truly learning that there is no emotion I cannot feel, that as long as I allow myself to feel it, I will be able to decide what I want to do from there.
Mhm.
But if I try to push it down, it will always bubble back up. It'll bubble back up, and it'll be probably in a reckless way that will be harmful. So let's not do that. Yeah.
Eva, you're an amazing woman. Wow.
Thank you.
What a beautiful interview, and how spookily we are aligned in
Yeah.
the lessons that we had to learn the hard way, and now the messages that we want to shout from the rooftops. It is beautiful. It's so refreshing. I'm very, very grateful that you opened up and you shared all this passion with me. This was amazing. If
Yes,
people want
yes.
to know more about you, if they want to check you out, where can they find you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity as well. It was so much fun. So I can be found, I have a podcast as well. It's now called Lose the Weight, Keep the Curves. And that's available on all platforms. I have a YouTube channel where I have workouts. So if anyone's interested in strength training, barre, anything like that, that's what I focus on. And I'm on Instagram at it's Eva Rodriguez. So I'm easily found on all of the social channels, but my podcast is my baby, so I always like to send people there to just learn more about how I teach and how I approach health and holistic health and life and all of that. And so that's where they can find me. Yeah.
Beautiful. Look down there into the description of the YouTube video or of the podcast. All of Eva's links are down there. And whilst you're down there, please press the like and subscribe button and tell your friends about our shows, shall I say, because we are here to make this world a better place, one interview at a time, one insight at a time. Because I strongly believe that when we start on ourselves, when we start working on our inside and create a true beauty and a true self-confidence, self-love, self-worth, all those things that are often so fleeting and are non-existent in many lives, if we foster the creation of these feelings and of these states, then we can start truly affecting the people around us. And like a ripple, like a butterfly effect, we can change the world. We have got that power, but you need to start from the inside out. And it's a wonderful choice to make. I encourage you all to come along on the journey that Eva and myself are on. These are amazing times. These are times full of challenges. But if we rise to them by creating a truly loving and resilient person within us, that is a wonderful, wonderful transformation that everyone can experience. Let's be very clear about that. Everyone. So, guys, come along on the journey. Eva, you are a gorgeous woman. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.
Cool. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.